The war in Europe didn't end with a bang. It ended with a smell. By April 1945, Germany was a corpse. The cities were burning, the roads were clogged with refugees, and the air smelled of wet ash, unwashed bodies, and something sweeter, something worse. Captain William Brenner knew that smell. Every combat surgeon in the U.S. Army knew it. It was the smell of gangrene. It is a scent that clings to the back of your throat, sweet, sickly, like rotting fruit left in the sun. To a doctor in 1945, that smell is a clock ticking down to zero. The source of the smell is sitting on exam table 4. She is 19 years old. She is wearing the torn, mud-caked gray uniform of the Luftwaffe. She is the enemy, and she is terrified. She keeps whispering in broken English, "I am fine, please, just tired." But she isn't fine. She is dying. When Captain Brenner steps forward, the military police officer guarding the door shifts his grip on his rifle. He looks at the girl with disgust. He looks at the doctor with impatience. Everyone wants this to be over. But when Brenner peels back the girl's sleeve, the room goes silent. Welcome back to the POW Project. Usually we tell stories of escape, men digging tunnels or jumping from moving trains. But today we're talking about a different kind of escape, the escape from death inside the very camp of your enemy. This is the story of Greta, a German girl who walked into an American field hospital with a secret under her sleeve. And it's the story of the American doctor who had to decide, do I treat the enemy or do I let nature take its course? Now, before we scrub in, I need you to do one thing. Look down. If that subscribe button is still red, you are missing out on the most intense, untold history on YouTube. We're building the biggest archive of POW stories in the world, and we need you in the ranks. Click it now. It's painless, unlike the surgery Greta is about to endure. If you think you have the stomach for 1945 field medicine, no anesthesia, no sterile recovery rooms, just grit, then you're in the right place. But fair warning, this gets visceral. Let's go back to Ward 7. April 1945, Western Germany, near Kassel. The U.S. Army has requisitioned a bombed-out textile factory to serve as the 112th Evacuation Hospital. It doesn't look like a place of healing. It looks like a warehouse of pain. The high windows have been shattered by percussion blasts, replaced with flapping canvas that lets in the damp German spring. The floor is stained concrete. The lighting is harsh, yellow, and unforgiving. Into this chaos walks Greta. She was captured 3 days ago near a collapsed supply depot. She is a Luftwaffe Auxiliary, one of the thousands of German women drafted to work radios and searchlights when the Reich ran out of men. She is small, dirty, and alone. As the MPs march her down the center aisle, the American soldiers in the cots turn to watch. These are men who have lost legs to German mines, men who have lost friends to Luftwaffe bombs. They don't see a 19-year-old girl. They see a gray uniform. They see a target. "Sit," the MP commands. She sits. She curls inward, protecting her left arm against her ribs like a wounded bird. She hasn't eaten in 3 days. She hasn't slept in 4, and she hasn't changed the bandage on her arm since the bomb hit. The fabric is stiff with dried blood and mud. Captain William Brenner watches her from the scrub station. He is 34 years old, a surgeon from Pennsylvania who has been cutting men open since the beaches of Normandy. He is tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. He dries his hands on a rough towel. He walks over. He doesn't see a uniform. He sees a patient who is about to collapse. "What is your name?" She flinches. She expects an interrogation. She expects to be asked about troop movements or radio frequencies. "Greta," she whispers. "Greta, I need to see your arm." She shakes her head violently. 9. She knows what happens to infected limbs in a war zone. She's seen the piles of amputated limbs stacked like firewood outside the medical tents. To her, "Let me see it" translates to "let me cut it off." Brenner doesn't ask again. He takes her rest. Her skin is burning hot. The bandage is a geological dig of the war. The outer layer is rough wool, cut from a coat to stop the bleeding days ago. Beneath that, a strip of cotton underwear, gray with dirt. And beneath that, the gauze. The gauze has turned brown and yellow. It has fused to the skin like cement. Brenner picks up the scissors. Snip. He starts to peel. Greta turns her face to the wall. She bites her lips so hard, a thin line of blood runs down her chin. She refuses to cry in front of the Americans. She refuses to give them the satisfaction. But when the final layer tears free, her body betrays her. She gasps. Nurse Hayes, the lieutenant standing nearby, takes a sharp breath. It isn't just a cut. It is a catastrophe. A jagged piece of shrapnel has torn a trench from her wrist to her forearm. But the wound isn't the problem. The shrapnel is long gone. The problem is what it left behind. The arm is swollen tight, the skin shiny and distended. In the center, greenish-white pus is pooling, pulsing with her heartbeat. And those red streaks, they are tracking the infection. Lymphangitis, sepsis. The bacteria is marching up her lymphatic system. It has passed the elbow. It is heading for the shoulder. Once it reaches the heart, the game is over. Brenner drops the contaminated bandage in the bin. He looks her in the eye. "Your wounds are spreading," he says. "If we don't clean this now, it will reach your blood. Do you understand?" Greta stops shaking. The terror vanishes, replaced by a cold, hollow resignation. She looks at the American doctor and asks the question that breaks the room. "Will you cut it off?" Amputation would be easy. Snip, saw, cauterize. 5 minutes. She lives, but she leaves a piece of herself in a bucket in Germany. In 1945, with supplies low and casualties high, amputation was the standard treatment for this level of infection. Why waste an hour saving an arm when you have 10 American men waiting for surgery? Especially for an enemy. He looks at her hand. It's a young hand. Maybe she played piano back in Berlin. Maybe she wanted to be an artist. Maybe she was just a girl who got caught in a war she didn't start. He looks at the saw. Then he looks at the scalpel. He makes a choice. "Not yet," he says. "We're going to clean it." Nurse Hayes steps in, her voice low. "Captain," she whispers, "we're low on ether." Brenner nods. He knows. Ether and morphine are gold dust. They are rationed strictly. They are saved for chest wounds, belly wounds, and American soldiers. For a debridement procedure on a prisoner, no. That is not how the arithmetic of war works. He turns to Greta. "I cannot put you to sleep," he says. "Do you understand?" She nods. She doesn't beg. She doesn't argue. Nurse Hayes hands her a thick leather strap, worn smooth by the teeth of 100 other men. "Bite on this," Hayes says in German. "Do not let go." The procedure is called debridement. It is a polite medical term for cutting out the rot, but there's nothing polite about it. To save the arm, he has to cut away the dead gray tissue to find the living red meat underneath. He has to take a scalpel and scrape the bone. He has to drain the abscesses that have tunneled deep into her muscle. He makes the first incision. Greta's body jerks on the table like she's been electrified. She bites the leather so hard, her jaw pops. Tears stream sideways into her ears. Brenner doesn't stop. He can't. If he stops, the infection wins. Scrape, cut, flush. Scrape, cut, flush. The sound of metal scraping against damaged tissue fills the small operating bay.
Hayes holds her shoulders down. "Breathe," she whispers. "Just breathe. It's almost over." It isn't almost over. It takes 40 minutes. 40 minutes of carving, 40 minutes of agony without a drop of painkiller. Greta doesn't scream. She hyperventilates. Her eyes roll back in her head. She goes to a place in her mind where the pain can't reach her. A place where the war doesn't exist. Finally, Brenner steps back. His own hands are shaking from the effort. The wound is raw. It is bleeding, bright, red blood. "Good," he mutters. "Blood is life." He packs the trench with sulfa powder, the white dust that saved a generation, and wraps it tight. "It's over," he tells her. "You kept..."
Midnight. Her temperature hits 102. She starts to shiver. Her teeth chatter so loud they rattle the frame of the cot. 2 a.m. It hits 103. In her mind, she isn't in a hospital anymore. She's back in the supply depot. The bombs are falling. The fire is everywhere. She calls out names of people who are already dead. Mutti, Hans, Mutti. By 4 a.m., she is burning at 104 degrees. She is delirious. The infection is fighting back. It is storming the castle of her immune system. Nurse Hayes wakes Brenner. He comes running in his undershirt, eyes wide. He unwraps the bandages. The red streaks are back, and they are darker. Brenner stands by the bed. He holds the saw in his mind. He has a choice. Choice A. Amputate now. Cut off the source of the poison. She lives, but she is maimed. Choice B. Wait. Double the drugs. Pray that her body fights back. If he waits too long, the sepsis will shut down her kidneys. Her heart will stop. She will die delirious and alone in an enemy hospital. He looks at Nurse Hayes. "If we cut it, she lives," Brenner says. Hayes looks at the 19-year-old girl, mumbling for her mother in German. "If it were my arm," Hayes says softly, "I'd want you to wait." So they wait. For 6 hours, the American captain sits by the German girl. He forces water down her throat. He packs the wound again. Outside, the sun begins to rise over a ruined Germany. Inside, a life hangs in the balance. Just before 0600, something shifts. The fever breaks. It snaps like a fever always does. 1 minute she is burning. The next, she is cool and sweating. She opens her eyes. The glassy terror is gone. Brenner checks the arm. The red lines have stopped marching. They are retreating. She is going to live. She looks at the doctor. She looks at her arm, still attached to her body. She whispers, "I thought I was going to die." Brenner smiles, a tired, exhausted smile. "Not today, Greta. Not today." Greta survived the infection. She survived the surgery. But as she sat up in bed drinking broth, she realized she wasn't safe yet. Across the room, 6 pairs of eyes were staring at her. 6 German soldiers, and they didn't look happy that she had survived. They looked angry. Why? Because in their eyes, she wasn't just a patient. She was a symbol of their defeat. A woman in a uniform being cared for by the enemy while they rotted in their beds. Greta kept her arm, but the war inside Ward 7 is just beginning. In Part 2, we're going to see what happens when the politics of war follow you into the hospital room. We'll see how Dr. Brenner defends her against her own countrymen, and we'll hear the final powerful question Greta asked him before she disappeared into history. You do not want to miss that. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.